Hi guys, and welcome back to Crafty Quilting Designs. So it's a new year and it's a great time for you to start to learn quilting. So there you go. So I am starting a 4-week quilt along, and our quilt is called New Beginnings. Why not? You know, when I thought of the name, I thought, what a wonderful name for a quilt. You know, because every time you use it, or if you're going through something difficult, or if you need reminding that the weather change, the season change, and that there's a new day, and that every time it's a new beginning. So now, why not? Why not use that for a name to remind us of all the things that we're going to achieve this year? And even if we have a setback, the next day is a fresh start. It's a new beginning. So that is why our quilt is called New Beginnings. So join me in the quilt along. It's going to be running for 4 weeks. We're going to start this video with the center blocks. That is what you're going to learn today. Now it's a little bit challenging, but I encourage you to have a go at it. You know, we only learn more steps and new skills by taking new challenges, and life is literally about pushing yourself forward and just trying to get over it, basically, and then looking back and say, you know what, I did that. So that is what this quilt is about, is that showing you that you can achieve anything that you want to do. There is nothing stopping you other than yourself. So if that inner self says to you, you can't, so then just step right out the door, because you are going to do it. All right? So you have my support anyway, and I'm sure you've got all of our community support. So you can do this. Now, let me show you this center block. It is absolutely, or should I show it to you? I wonder. Let me show you what it actually looks like. It's really lovely, guys. Now I made mine in blue. I don't know why. I think I'm going through a bit of a blue at the moment because I've got lots of blues, and blue is my favorite color, so many of my quilts does have blues in them. So this is what the center block looks like. Now, I think that is absolutely beautiful. It's going to be a very gorgeous quilt, you know. So join us, because I don't want to say just join me, but join everyone in making this, so that you can look back and see your fantastic, beautiful quilt that you made with a quilt along. So why not, guys? So I encourage you, I support you, and I'm your champion. I'll be like, yay! Go on, you can do it. Go on, you can do it. I know, I'm so silly, but I love it. What else is there to do? I mean, come on. You gotta love life and just live it and have a good time. There's no point in just being all down and droopy all the time. That gets you nowhere. So join me in the quilt along, and let's have some fun, learn some new skills, challenge yourself, be brave, don't be afraid, because you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it, because this is nothing difficult. This is all about having fun and boosting your self-esteem. So guys, trust me, let's get started and get right into it. So happy quilting, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Give me a thumbs up, you know, because I enjoy seeing the thumbs up. It's like, ah, I got another thumbs up. I know, I'm really sad, but I love it anyway. Bye for now, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Hi guys, so I'm going to get started. I'm going to let you know what sort of fabric I'm actually using. So I'm going to be making the quilt with fat quarters, and these are the colors I will be using. So I have variations of colors of blues here. So I have the lightest to the medium, and then dark, and another sort of lightish medium in the middle there. So these are the colors I'm going to use, and I'm going to use this as well. So I think these are very contrasting. I've had these in my stash for some time now, so I haven't really bought anything brand new. They've been on my shelf for probably a few months now, probably more than a few, to be honest, but I can't remember. I think since the summer, or just before the summer started. I bought these. So I'm going to start using them. So I have 9 to start with at the moment. I do have some more. I haven't exactly calculated how much we will need, but I'm starting with 9. For this one, we're going to be needing 3 fat quarters. So I've already cut some up. So I've used this one here, and I've also used the darkest, which is this one, and I'm also working with the floral print here as well, and one of the lighter, which is this one here as well. Okay, so I've just basically just chosen I know the 2 packs go together contrasting, but basically what I was working with is trying to get lights and darks and to complement how the main star goes. I will go through my colors and what sizes they relate to as with the cuts, so that you know how to plan to do your center block, which is what we're starting with. Now, it's a very simplistic block. It's a block that we have more or less did different parts together. So we're going to be doing some flying geese and some stitch and flip, basically, technique, and then using some squares. That's basically it. So although the block may look construction wise difficult, it's quite easy to do. Now I'm going to give you sizes, but I will also put them in the description box down below. So what I will do is just simply say what block I am using, so that way it's easier for you to pick up rather than me tell you what sizes they are as I go along. So we're going to start with the flying geese, and I'm using these ones here for my flying geese, and I've already just to speed things along, draw a diagonal line from point to point. Okay, and these are my squares. All right, and I also have some rectangles for my flying geese also. Excuse me. Okay, so again, I'll give you all the sizes, but for now we're going to make the flying geese. Now before we start, remember to iron your fat quarters so that way they're nice and flat, and to ensure that you're cutting on the right grain. Okay, so I've already marked, as I said. I'm simply going to take one of my rectangles here, and I'm going to start with putting this down. Now when you put it down, make sure you put it down as the marked point from that point there. Okay, so you can actually see. And so we're going to sew on that drawn line. So both of the edges where the diagonal line is drawn must be on the edge, from that end there to that end there, so to the end of that rectangle. Okay, and we're simply going to sew on that line, and then once we've done that, we're going to cut a 1/4 inch off and then iron it back like so. All right, now again, we've done this several times, and you know my technique. Once I tend to remind myself that this is the area in which I need to cut, so I always tend to put a pin there. So you can chain piece this so it'll go nice and quick. So I am just simply going to literally lay all of them down like so, and I'm going to pin all of them and then sew, and then that way it goes really quickly. But again, get all your cuts together before you get started, so you will have all of that to do. Right, so remember with the flying geese, we will eventually put the other one on this side, but we must do one at a time first, so that once we fold back the fabric, it makes a nice rectangle on that side, a nice sort of 1/4 square triangle. Okay, so it must be done in that way first. I wouldn't advise you to try and do both of them together, otherwise it will not be very neat and tidy. All right, so I'm just going to now sew all of this on, and then I will come back and show you the next stages. So I'm just going to set the seams on these now. And then all I'm going to do is simply cut off a 1/4 inch and do the same thing on the other side. So I'm just going to cut off. I don't know why this is giving me problems just to settle down. It's been very fiddly. I guess it's because I am sitting down. Usually I am standing to do this. So leverage and movability is a bit limited. I guess I'm so used to sewing standing. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't say sewing standing. I should say demonstrating standing. That sitting is a bit awkward. Now, if you so wish, you can keep these little pieces entirely down to you, but I'm not sure what I'm going to do with them yet. I never know what I'm going to do with my scraps until I get a brainstorm to do something. So, but I usually keep them just in case. Now, what I'm going to do now is press this open. And remember, try to use a very warm iron, not too hot, because with these they can get distorted quite easily. Okay, so what we're going to do now is do the other side, very much exactly what I have just done. And then we'll have our flying geese unit completed. So we should have 8 of these in total. Okay, so same applies. Let me put this to the side. So same applies. Oops, look at that. So remember, don't do it that way, because I would have stitched this upside down. A very good that I actually notice it. So make sure that the line, the middle line, is touching the center there to make sure that you are lining it up correctly. Okay, and just take your time. It is a little bit fiddly. I always find, for me personally, that smaller pieces of fabric are quite fiddly for me. So again, we're going to stitch on that line, and then it's going to be flipped back like so. All right. So again, if you want to chain piece all of this, you can do that. Make the process quicker. But I think once you've started with, once you've actually draw the lines, do all the cutting, it is quite quick to go through it. It doesn't take long at all. I'm not going to bother and pin these off, because I'm literally just going to sew it on as I'm sitting here. So you can do that as well. Remember, the drawn line centers up with the previous one you've just stitched on. One more. so that's the flying geese finished now. Okay, so I'm going to cut that off and I'm going to leave that on the side for now. Okay, now we're going to move on to our stitch and flip units, and we need the same amount of squares, and again I will tell you the amount you need, so don't worry about the moment. What you really need to be concerned of is the sort of subject lines that I'm calling. So we did the flying geese, that's your subject line, and now we're doing the stitch and flip, okay, or another subject line. So forgive me, I'm a teacher, so I have to move on with subject lines so that you understand. Right, so with these now, with the stitch and flip, you need 8 in total. Okay, so 8 in total of each amount of the squares. And what's very important here is when you mark your squares here, your smaller squares, you need to make sure that that mark mirrors each other. So for example, I have one diagonal line going from this point to that point, and the other line goes from this point to that point. So you're aiming to get like a little triangle like that. Very, very important. Okay, so the same applies. We are going to stitch on each of that line and flip over, just as we have done with the flying geese, but we are not adding another one onto there. Hence the reason I've called them stitch and flip, so that it's easier to recognize. So again, you will have 8 of each in total, so 8 rectangles and 8 squares. Okay, and again I'll repeat that. When you draw your lines, you need to draw from point to point, point to point. Okay, and once you lay them down, both points must mirror each other. Now, one of the things I wanted to point out, now I am using directional print on a lot of my fat quarters, so you need to be mindful of how you want your stitch and flip to fall. Now, I have decided that all of my prints are going to be going horizontal, but yet I am going to draw that diagonal line through that horizontal, so when it folds over, I will get my prints going upward on both of them. Okay, so that's what I've decided. So you can, if you're using fabrics with print, just remember those little things. But most important is that once you have drawn that diagonal line on that smaller square, you must lay them out on the rectangle with a point of a sort of a house or a triangle, so they must mirror each other. Very, very important. Okay, so if I can bring it closer to the camera just to ensure that you see what I'm talking about. So that is what I'm referring to. Very, very important. And then you will do the same, stitch along the lines for all of them, and then we will start to more or less compile the block. We've got a few more stitches and stuff to go through, but that is the beginning of the block. Okay, now for our center block, I am going forward with this one here, and again this is my dark blue, and this again I will tell you the size. All right, so for now let's get all of the stitch and flip sewn together, and then we will start to build the block. Okay guys, so let's move on to the next stage now. Now the next thing we need to do is to make our quarter square triangle blocks, okay? And we need 4 in total. Now the size we need is these bigger squares here, and what I have done is to cut them in 4 to make the quarter square triangles. All right, now you need 2 of this particular one here, this floral print. Now remember, I am using different selection of print, and obviously once we form the center star, the center block, you would see exactly where these falls, so that way you can follow along as to what fabric you want to use in your placement for your center block star. Okay, now this one as well. Now I refer to these, and I will refer to them when I write down the instructions, as my floral blue and my floral brown, my background blue, okay, my dark center blue, or I may even say my background medium blue, for example. All right, but I would most likely say background medium blue, because if you notice, I've used these quite regularly. So these are literally the background fabric. All right, these particular blue here, and these are my dark center blue, and I've also used them here again on the stitch and flip. All right, so you need 6 inches squares of these, and you need to cut them from point to point, point to point, to form an X. Okay, now what I would say, when you do cut them, stack them 2s together and then cut them, because this is 2 here, this is 2 sets here, so you need 2 sets of the floral, 1 set of the brown, and 1 set of 4 quarter square triangles for the background blue. All right, so this is how it goes together. So I've made an example here already, and these trim down as well to 5 inches square. So I'm going to put that on the side for now. So what you need to do is to take one of each. So this one goes on the left, okay, and again you would see why once I've shown you how the actual squares come together. Now what I also wanted to point out before I forget is that I have labeled all of mine, so I am on track every time to know exactly what piece of fabric I am working with, so that I don't get myself confused. So I've made my flying geese and I've put it back there. I have made my stitch and flip, and I've put my label back there as well. These are some floral squares, and I've put the label back there. I don't see the point in naming this one, because I noticed only one of this center block, so there's no need to label that. And these are my quarter square triangles. All right, so that's what we're going to do now. So I'm going to take one of this, and I'm going to lay it out exactly like this one here, and I'm going to take this one and put it at the top there, and another one. And it's very important that you follow this, yeah, don't go changing it around, because then the layout of the star will be incorrect. All right, and so then we will just simply sew it together. So I will sew these 2 together first, then these 2 together, and then bring them together. Once I've done that, then I will iron it on the wrong side, and then iron it on the front side, making sure all your seams are lovely and flat, and then I will trim it up. Okay, so let's do one of that now, so you know exactly what to do. So again, I'm going to fold this over front sides together, and of course we're using a 1/4 inch seam. You can stitch all of this together if you want, but to be honest, I really prefer to do it singularly, because I just don't want to get confused. But if you want to change piece, then that's fine also. But as I said, it's only 4 you're doing, so I prefer to open it back out, put it there, and just making sure I'm picking up the right thing. Another thing to be mindful of is excuse me, just be careful, because you're working with bias areas there, and it can be a little bit stretchy, so try not to stretch the fabric as you sew, or even when you finger press. All right, so again, This one now, same thing applies. Now I have cut these slightly bigger, the actual square themselves, so that we can trim them down to the required sizes. So you know, don't think that your cutting instructions are incorrect. They're not. All right, and make sure that you nest these seams here. Very important. Now if you want to pin, by all means go ahead and do that, but it's such a small piece, and it seems to be behaving itself, because you know they tend to have a mind of their own, these small pieces of fabric. Just ensure that once you actually put it through, that these seams really be nice and flat. So you know, I'm always thinking ahead in terms of the quilting, because bulky seams means sometimes you can break your needles or just have a difficult time sewing. All right, so I'm just going to press this out with my finger. I'm going to give it a little press on the back now. Okay, so that's lovely and flat. So what I'm going to do now is use my ruler and to align it so that it's lovely and centered. And I'm going to use my my 5-inch block here with that diagonal line going through, and line it up right in the middle there. Now the square is slightly bigger, so you have enough room to go all the way around and measure it correctly. Now mine is not on the edge of the fabric, because as I said, it's larger, and as I said, I did that deliberately so I can go all the way around and get a correct 5-inch square. Okay, so I'm going to center my diagonal line on the point and the middle line there on the fabric, that diagonal line on the fabric, and go all the way around. As usual, I'm going to cut one side off first and then the other side. Now just ensure that you have enough space to go all the way around before you start cutting. And I'm going to turn it, because I know this side is freshly cut and this side is freshly cut. And I'm going to line up my 5-inch there and my 5-inch at the bottom there, because I know those lines are nice and straight now. And once I've done that, I can automatically see that that line is lining up there nicely. And all I need to do now is to simply cut it and get my 5-inch square. All right, so I'm going to give that a little press again, just so it's nice and flat, with a little bit of steam. Okay, so that's 2 down. So what I'm going to do now is to continue to make the next 2, and then I will show you exactly what else we need to do. Alright guys, so now it's time to lay out the blocks. So let me show you how the center square actually comes together now. It's quite simplistic. So we're going to start with the center block, so the dark blue. Okay, and then we're going to go in with our flying geese units. And you want one there. Now remember, these go out, they do not go like this. Okay, that is incorrect. Okay, we want the light blue touching the dark blue. So light blue touching the dark blue. All the way around. So what you're aiming at is to get a square on point. Okay? Now the next step is our floral corner squares for our smaller star in the middle here, and that goes there. And that goes there. This is going to get big quite quickly, so let me just drag it down a little bit. And then these two go in the corner there. Okay, coming along nicely. All right, our next step now is to add on our stitch and flip. Okay, now remember we had two different sides of these so that we have that sort of angle coming together. So one goes, let's get that out of the way, there. The other one goes there, right at the point there. Same with this one. Our blue squares, they go in the corner there. Okay, so remember these are our background colors. I'm going to squish it up a little bit more just to ensure that you can see what I'm doing. That wasn't a bad move, was it? All that squishing didn't go too badly there. Wasn't too much of a breaking down of the block, so that was not too bad. So next one, to get this down there, get myself some room. So we've got these more here. And that one goes in right there. Now it's very easy to get this confused, so just double check, don't rush yourself. It's not a race, it really is, because it can get quite confusing very, very easily. Notice I have to keep checking myself also. No, that one goes in there, and that goes there. Nope. There we go. And there we go there. And that one goes there. Okay. And all we need to do now is fit in these ones here. Now, very important. The background square goes outward. The floral must be touching the florals there. That one goes there. That one goes there. And the last one goes in there. Okay, and that is our center block. Absolutely beautiful. So now we've got to stitch this together. Now, the best way to stitch it together is in rows. So the first row there, second row, third row, fourth row, fifth row. It's up to you. Or if you wanted to, you can stitch this center unit together and then you add the last one on top and then the bottom. It's entirely down to you. I don't see any particular format into sew it together. It's really what makes you comfortable. Okay, so I'm going to start with the rows, and I think that's probably going to be easiest, and then work my way down. And all I'm doing literally is just giving it a slight pull so that all of the seams are nicely raised. As we know, they can simply lie down very and full there as we iron. So just give it a pull so it's nice and flat as you press. Obviously don't tug on it. We don't want to distort the block, but just, you know, a nice little tug so that you can get it out nice and flat. Okay, that looks good to me. So I'm going to square this up. It should come up to 18 inches square. So let's see what it is. I could see that there are a little bit of rough edges that need trimming off. So just to make sure it's nice and squared up properly. And in its raw state, it's literally 18. So I'm just going to trim it down nicely. We do have some little edges there where we have room for trimming, so we don't cut our points off. So I'm just going to straighten up the edges. As usual, I'm looking for my cutter. As usual, guys, I tell you, I spend so much time looking for this thing, and I have about 3. So when I can't find one, then I go get the other. It's usually buried somewhere. What I'm doing is measuring the top there and the bottom there. There's a little bit of a extra fabric in the middle, so I'm just lining it up, make sure it's nice and even, and just trimming off the excess. And I'm doing that to all 4 sides just to make sure it's nice and square. What I have here is a little bit of a bow there and a little bit of a tuck in, so I'm just going to use one of the lines on the cutting mat just to ensure that I get this nice and straight. You know, one of the sort of difficult things is that if it's not straight, that's when you get problems joining the block to other blocks. So just, this is the time to ensure everything is nice and straight and it tallies up well. Don't want to be worrying about that when you have the other blocks, so just make sure that everything is good and you haven't got any issues there. Alright, so that is our block, guys. So it is 18 inch. I'll just double check again. I did trim off a little bit, just a touch. So that is our block. Absolutely beautiful. I love it. It looks really nice. This is our center block. So we are going to add more around this. It's not completed, the centers yet. We're still going to put another border of fabrics around it. But for now, we're starting with this one. So let's get it all finished. And I shall see you in the next one, guys. So happy quilting. Bye for now, and of course I shall see you next week. Bye for now, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and of course hit that notification bell. See ya.